Hello, everybody. We are live broadcasting to the world. Damien, how are you doing?
That's amazing. I was right until you said we were broadcasting to the world. It sounds important now.
Stress levels went up, panic stations. It'll be like that BBC interview, where the kid comes in screaming or something behind one of us. Don't think any of us got screaming kids. Anyway, there's a bit of a rambling start. Sorry, everyone. Welcome along to the live stream. Damien, we're very happy to have you with us again. You were with us fairly recently, actually, for our gear.
Yes, it was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, for the Geek Out, which I enjoyed a lot, and we had a lot of viewers for as well. So if you don't know what we're talking about, we did a What's in Our Gear special a few weeks ago, and you can still find that on the YouTube channel. As ever, though, if you're watching along live, do let us know where you're checking in from. I'm sure most of you are probably out at Tesco, battling your way through the Christmas shopping or whatever it might be. Seems to the world just goes mad, doesn't it, at this time of year? If only everyone was buying prints and photographic things, that would be nice.
That would be a great Christmas.
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah. Have you actually? Here's one then, Damien. Just whilst we're waiting, there's some people joining in online. Have you been out with the camera much recently? I know because a lot of your work is also writing and interviewing. And there's a lot of photography still going on.
Yeah, I haven't really. I've been testing various things that require me to take pictures, but nothing exciting. It's normally technical, nerdy kind of pictures because I'm counting the noise grains or something like that. But no, nothing creative. I did an event the other week. It was fun in a very confined space. Didn't know what I was going to come up against.
Okay.
I was testing out some flash units. That was fun, but nothing creative.
But this is what happens, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit of a segue, sorry, and we're going to get to Granada, and we're going to tell you all about Granada very soon. But what happens is it's very difficult to actually make time to do your own photography, isn't it?
God. Yeah. Actually, I'm forgetting. I did a workshop in London just a couple of weeks ago. One day workshop on the South Bank in, the weekend we had the storm?
Yes.
Yeah, that weekend. that Sunday. And actually, it was brilliant. It rained and it was very windy and things, but great atmospheric conditions. And I always get there much too early, so that I can check that the Houses of Parliament are still there and they haven't knocked down the Queen Elizabeth Hall and things like that. So I was able to do lots of creative photography then, which was great. That was great fun. I loved doing that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. Well, everyone who's joining, thank you. Jez, you're in Dorset. You're very close to me, I believe. He has been to Andalusia a few years back, so looking forward to seeing your take, Damien. There we go. And Mike is in Suffolk. And like you say, I'm afraid we usually do an award for who's going to win the most exotic place. Mike in Suffolk is actually winning, which is amazing. Usually somebody in somewhere even more exotic than Suffolk wins.
Suffolk is exotic.
Especially Mike. Anyway, let's get to it. We are talking about Granada and the surrounding area. So let me just get the slides up and rocking and rolling. Yes, don't we look like we know what we're doing there, don't we?
I look very angry, actually.
Yes, you look like you're screaming at the model, like internally, like just move. Okay. Oh, late winner here, Gary. Seattle. Yeah. You're winning there, Gary. Phil, I'm sorry, Whitstable.
Whitstable.
You're not winning. No, me neither. Carnoustie. Wow. Okay.
Oh, that is exotic.
That's pretty good as well. But Gary's tonight's winner of most exotic place. However, talking of exotic, he seeks desperately for a segue back to what we're actually here to talk about. Let's talk about Granada, which is in Spain. And I've even looked this week. Look at this, Damien. This is high tech.
That's very handy because I thought I was going to Essex.
Yeah, it's somewhere outside Whitstable. Granada is located where that red arrow is in the south of Spain, everybody, if you've never been. And I'm going to shock everybody here. In my life, I have been around the world, literally. I've circumnavigated the world. And I have only ever been in Spain for one afternoon in my life.
Good God.
I know.
You need to fix that.
It's amazing, isn't
it? Come with us.
Well, absolutely. So tell us, Damien, why Granada and that area? How did you first find it? What was it so exciting about it photographically? I know we'll cover some of that as we go, but why Granada?
I wanted to go somewhere hot, frankly. Sam.
Fair enough.
No, that's not true. Actually, it did start that way, but my wife wanted to go somewhere hot, and it was my 50th birthday.
Oh, so it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Hey!
So she booked a long weekend in Granada, and we'd never been there before. And I'd heard lots of things about it and seen lots of pictures of it. It was a surprise before she told me, if you know what I mean, but it wasn't a surprise before we went. So we had time to look places up and book things to do, particularly the Alhambra, because you kind of do need to book that.
Okay.
And we went in September, which is when my birthday is. It was a bit after, I think it was late September, and it was really, really nice and warm when we got there, but it was just fabulous. It really was fabulous. We loved it. And there was so much to see. It was explained to me before we went, it wasn't a photographic holiday. So right. I wasn't allowed to take lots of kit, but it was my birthday. So, well, yeah. So I took this camera, a little one, that's Lumix GX9, and I took a couple of lenses that mostly are 10 to 25. And I tried not to take loads of kit and tried to be there to experience the place rather than just photograph it. But I did take a lot of pictures, and it was brilliant. When I came back and looked through the images, I thought, yeah, do you know what? This is a place that will be great for a workshop, because there's just so much to photograph, and it's beautiful, really, really beautiful.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're gonna get into it. We've got sort of 17 or 18 images we're going to go through, and there's a nice mix of stuff from Damien. We're trying to show you a bit of the area with these images, and also there's some we're going to sort of dive into in a bit more detail, maybe photographically. But as ever, everybody watching along, and a couple of others, Jane, good try. Paul, pretty exotic, but Gary is still winning, I'm afraid. If there's any questions you have about either the place, this particular tour, because like always, we're kind of basing these live streams around an upcoming tour so that we can give you more information about it and dive into some photography related chat. So if you've got any questions about either the location and or the pictures, any technical things, Damien loves technical chat, as we established earlier on in the live stream, then he will be here to do that. But let's dive into the images, because I've done a fair bit of preambling here. But I did want to understand why Granada. And actually, I should say, maybe, Damien, I don't want to age you here. I mean, you already did a little bit with your birthday thing. But you have been a professional photographer, I believe, since you were 19.
Yeah.
So...
colour was invented at that stage.
Exactly, with the old box brownie. But to go somewhere and still be kind of really enthused photographically, even as someone who's been everywhere, done everything, seen everything, was that one of the reasons why you felt so excited about this place? And to in terms of the breadth of photographic opportunities, perhaps, which are there.
Yes. You know what it's like. If you go somewhere you haven't been before, you see a whole lot of stuff. You see things with fresh eyes, and it's all very, very exciting. And I've learned over the years that isn't necessarily a good indicator of whether that's a great place to take someone else. And I'm able now to look through the pictures that I've done, have a good old think about where I've been, how many places are there, what sort of shots can we get in these different places, and to then determine, is it just sort of the fresh zizz of excitement because it's somewhere I haven't been before, or is it actually somewhere that I could go back to and feel just as excited? And this is one of those places. And it's, I think, is it easy to photograph? Not necessarily. It's easy to see what you should photograph or what you could photograph. It's easy, like these two guys here. What country is this? Hello.
Yeah.
they look like the Gypsy Kings. don't they? And you've got the Moorish architecture in the background. It's not Norway, is it?
No.
It's pretty clear. And the whole place is like that. The culture really comes out in the way that people look as well as the architecture, and the way the place is designed as well. And it's hilly, so there's so many places where you're able to stop and get your breath back while pretending to admire the scenery. So it really is a picturesque place. And the difficulty I've had with this, actually, the tour, is trying to fit everything in without rushing around. I don't want to rush around, and so we're not going to cover the whole city, but we're going to cover a lot of the places that I thought were most exciting.
Yeah,
and Alhambra in the background there is just unbelievably good.
Well, shall we? And I know we've got some images. We've got some nice architectural images. We've got some more landscape, if you will, images, and also some really cool, beautiful street images a bit later on as well, which is kind of Damien, which is really loves to do. And I can see Damien's signature in some of those as well, having seen his work over a number of years, which is really nice. But I think the breadth of stuff available is the kind of big point I wanted to make. You've touched on the fact that's the Alhambra behind. Do you want to just kind of explain the actual sort of location side of things, in that I believe there's the city of Granada, and then there is the Alhambra next to it. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the place is kind of in a puddle at the bottom of the mountain side. It's not a sheer cliff mountain. It's a long sloping one that goes way off into the distance. And at the bottom of the mountain, there's this town, a city that's been there for since the beginning of time, donkey's years. And it's not built around Alhambra. Alhambra sort of sits above it on its own little hilltop, and it looks out over the city and away off into the distance across the plain that takes you down to the sea. But there are some houses and bits of the city behind it, but most of the city is in front of it and around. And it's sort of a very typically Spanish kind of place. There's a church on every corner, and the cathedral is just enormous and incredible. But most people go for a tour of Alhambra and then realise that actually there's a whole lot of stuff in the city to see as well. It really is amazing.
Cool. We've got some beautiful architectural images, both internally and externally, coming up tonight, and I'm going to let Damien obviously explain where some of these places are in a bit more detail.
Yeah, picking the pictures actually here was quite difficult, because I wanted to show the different sides of Alhambra, and there's other ones of the cathedral and things like that. And I know that a lot of people just assume I only do street photography. But I mean, for my work, I shoot interiors and architecture and stuff like that. And I mean, give me a camera, I'll point it at anything. So at the beginning, there's lots of sort of architectural stuff, but then we go on into other things. So it's going to be a sort of a travel photography trip, I think, really. But these are the gardens at Alhambra, which are just amazing. And a day isn't going to be enough. So I think what we're going to do is spend the day in Alhambra, and then we're going to go back the next day and shoot the gardens. And this, believe it or not, is actually the gardens. It's not the actual palace. But we're going to take our time, and there will be opportunities to do architectural kind of pictures, and for people to spend a lot of time finding the right angle. We're going to stroll around. I think a lot of people, the tourists, will whiz around and get their phones out and click away at everything. But we're not going to do that. We're going to wait until we've got times like this where there's no one around. Actually, there is a guy. I just see him walking into the doorway there. But at the entrance to the place, it's busy and there's loads of people and it's all the hustle and bustle. But as you go further in, the crowd sort of disappear off, and it's really quite peaceful, considering it's such a famous place and there are so many visitors every year. It's easy to find a quiet spot, or you just wait until the group that came in with you has gone ahead, and then the other group hasn't caught up yet, because they come in stages.
Right.
And most people tend to gallop around trying to get it done, so they can go and have lunch. But we won't do that. We're going to do a strolling pace and take our time and stop and spend ages if we need to take some pictures. But yeah, these are the gardens, and they're just beautiful, really beautiful.
It's very similar to my garden, actually. But yeah. I mean,
you need to look at your pool. It's gone green.
Yeah, you need to get that treated. But I suppose it's quite a big site. So even though there might feel like a lot of people there at the beginning when you first get in, people disperse around, don't they, as you say? And then you actually can kind of find these kind of pockets of space. Just to show a little bit of what Damien was talking about with the kind of the layout, you've got the Mount Sierra Nevada, isn't it? But in the background, I believe. And so it's kind of quite a big sweeping landscape there as well. So is this from within? It looks like the topiary would dictate to me that we're in that garden area still. Is that right? He says, "Well,
yes, we are."
Okay.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So there's opportunities here for long lens stuff to pick out bits and bobs away off into the distance. But it will be very hard to resist doing a panoramic view and trying to stitch it together later on, because it's expansive. It really is broad, and there's so much to see. It's the kind of place where you can just stand for ages just looking at it and being amazed at what you can see away off in the distance. And I love all the trees here and all the textures in them. And normally I'm a wide open aperture kind of a person, but this was shot at f8, which in full frame terms would be 11, to get the depth of field and to bring out all the detail in the scene.
Yeah, whenever you've got mountains like that in the background, there's going to be changing weather, changing light, etc. as well. But that topiary, there's that particularly spiky orange and green looking tree in the middle that looks like a sort of cocktail of sorts. It's an odd thing to say. Just a couple of comments I'm going to mention. Jane is watching because she went on a tour to Andalusia a couple of years ago. It's the best thing I've done. Amazing place, and the mountains were superb. Jane, I'm a bit upset that you're not watching just because it's me and Damien, but we'll let you off. And Barbara actually agrees with Jane, one of the best tours she's done. So the sort of big thumbs up for the area. And Ken, Isle of Sheppey, always with us.
Sheppey.
Yeah, a bit late on parade this evening. You are forgiven, Ken, because you've been so good this year. I'll let you off. I think we've got a couple more within the gardens, probably, Damien. Is that right? And we can see out.
Some of these two are views from the walls. So there's places inside the palace where you get an incredible view as well as from the gardens. Yeah, but I love the buildings all nestled there off in the distance.
Yeah, and you mentioned long lens stuff as well. It's quite nice, isn't it, just to pick out, if you're looking down, especially into older towns, places like this where there's kind of a real hodgepodge of, tans and browns and oranges and terracottas, and that can be a nice image, just actually either broader like you've got here with setting, or really getting in tight and losing any sky and just concentrating on the graphical nature of it, as it were. Now you mentioned actually there, Damien, and lots of people who've been on with us before who will have seen you shoot with micro four thirds stuff normally, don't you, in terms of the Panasonic? And
for my street stuff, I would.
Okay, so on this sort of a trip, would you have a couple of options with you, or what would you be walking around with in your bag in these?
Well, do you know, I'm not absolutely sure. These were shot with micro four thirds. That was the only camera I took on this particular trip. and one camera and a couple of lenses. So yeah, this was a GX9. I think probably when I go this time coming, I will take full frame. But you know, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. My priority usually is not to bring lots of heavy kit, so that I can carry it around all day and not get too tired.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have it with me, and I don't feel I'm going to leave it in the hotel safe. So yeah, taking the small kit is it just makes the whole trip more comfortable.
Yeah,
I think, and if we'll do some night stuff as well, and a lot of people are worried about small sensors and noise. It's just not really an issue anymore. It used to be. You do, you know, obviously you get less noise with a full frame sensor, but you know, how much noise can you cope with? And some of these were shot at quite high ISO settings, and the noise isn't an issue at all. Now, yeah, this is inside the palace here. The colours are just beautiful.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the Moorish design and architecture, and lots of these places, and I'm not knowledgeable about that area, so I shouldn't make a sweeping statement here. But I would imagine there have been a vast amount of influences to the area. So architecturally as well, you see elements throughout the ages, as it were, of influences on the visual design.
Yeah, the place has changed hands so many times, it's unbelievable. But because it's been there for so long. And it's because it's a strategically important position, and that you can see a whole lot of stuff from there if you're worried about the neighbours trying to attack. Lots of people wanted it. So the Arabs and the Moors and the Phoenicians, I think, as well. Romans were up there as well.
Oh, they've been everywhere.
They've been everywhere, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of different influences in the architecture around there, and you can see it in the people as well, because all these invaders leave their genes behind, don't they? And you can see in the locals, they look different. They look quite specific.
We should mention this tour is going on in 12th to the 17th of May 2025. So not long now. I suppose once we get past Christmas, we soon rattle into the new year.
We'll be there.
I would imagine that's quite a nice time temperature-wise, because it's probably mild without being so hot that you're sweating away all day if you're out there.
It will be a whole lot warmer than here, but it's not going to be 40 degrees. That's the key thing.
Yeah,
and you get nice. You get a lot of sunshine, or daylight is what I'm trying to say. Good daylight at that time of year, and sunshine. So yes, it will be nice without being overpowering.
Yeah. Just before, because we've got a couple of beautiful interior shots. I know, absolutely stunning, and I'm going to ask you about that in just a second. I'm just going to pick on a couple of the. Charlie's with us. There we go.
Goodness me.
He's enjoying this. Known and admired Damien over very many years. Don't give away his age, Charlie. I've been trying to help him with that tonight. And Jez says, I went having been inspired by Charlie to see the almond blossom. A day trip south of Granada into the hills. Yes, there's all sorts of beautiful things out there. And Rosie, belatedly, that's all right, Rosie, also from Dorset. Why wouldn't you be? It's the best place to be. I've spent a couple of amazing holidays in Granada over 10 years ago now, but still memorable. Well, there you go. And Samiru, late one, hi all from Bristol. Hello, thank you for joining us. Damien, we talked, I sort of teased the fact that there would be some beautiful interiors coming up. I mean, this is pretty stunning. Tell us more.
I just find it incredible that somebody drew this before they built it. They planned out, or maybe they just started and it developed. I don't know. But you assume that someone worked out what they were going to do, and then they drew it all and designed it, and then some poor bloke had to put it all together. But the place is so detailed. The architecture is just incredible. You can see there up in the ceiling, it's like honeycomb. And I don't know what. How would you ever imagine that if you?
Yeah,
I don't know how that would happen. You'd have to be drunk or you taken something.
inspired. I
But
think, Damien. Yeah,
that's what I meant to say. Inspired, but the detail is amazing, and the detail in the walls as well. All those patterns and carvings and things are just incredible. This is just one room. There's room after room after room like this, and the whole place is just mind-boggling. A lot of people just walk through there because it's almost too much to take in. So yeah, just trying to capture all of that information in a shot and to give a sense of scale, and so that people can feel that they're there. There needs to be things in the picture that can ground people, little anchors for people to go, right, I feel like I'm standing here and I can see something, because it's quite easy to shoot this stuff and it come out quite abstract and people can't work out quite what it is and what is it that you're showing me, if people can't quite grasp what it is that they're looking at. So it takes some practice and a bit of thought to ground people, ground the viewer, I suppose, so that they've got a starting position. Right, I know now that we're in a big room, excuse me, with arches, and there's this incredible detail in the ceiling and on the walls. And the light there, of course, is just beautiful. It won't be too high in the sky. It will still be quite low for a lot of the day. So we've got lots of light streaming in all over the place.
Really good point about the grounding. That's really interesting. And this does appear, it is of the view if we were just looking up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like we're in that first person view. So that is really interesting. And I think the other, I mean, good job. It's like, you know what you're doing. The other interesting part of what you were saying there is sometimes it can be very overwhelming, right? When you're seeing so much stuff visually, and it's a bit like outdoors in the landscape. If there's some amazing light or weather or whatever, the challenge can be not just shooting the conditions, but still making a photograph that's coherent, right? And in these indoor situations, you could fall into the same trap of being a bit blinded by you know what I mean? So because there's so much there, it's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? So
it is.
You need to keep the order.
Kind of make sense of it. Yes. Order, hierarchy, and making sense of it. So what we're doing is explaining it for the viewer. If you were here, these are the things that you would see. But of course, we have to get that straight in our heads before we can take a picture that says that.
Yeah.
Because if you walk through it and someone says, "Oh, what did you see?" "Oh man, there's this big room full of detail-y stuff," and then people go, "What are you talking about?" So you kind of have to slow down, really slow down, and say, "Right, what is it that I want to show? It's like you said in the landscape. What's the subject? What's the thing that has caught my attention here? What's made me stop?"
Yeah.
And then to try and show that in a picture that explains it in a split second.
Yeah. Well, you've basically just put photography in a nutshell in a minute there. I mean, I'd hate to tell you you've got another 32 minutes to fill. You've just given away everything in 1 minute. But I think for anyone watching, that's all very sensible stuff. And I think that's years of also your editorial work and professional work is when people hire you to go and do something, you've got to come back with that thing that makes sense, right? And that is clear and transmits the point across, especially if it's a commercial thing. It might be transmitting a product or a company vibe or whatever it is, you know what I mean? You've got to get to the nub of that. And the visuals give the codes of the anchors and everything else. I'm just moving us outside the Alhambra, and it's difficult on this screen, everyone, to see the quite funny kind of thing on this young lady's phone, because what's happening here is that there's a little bit of sneaky Damien street photography kind of coming into the vibes. So did you spend a little bit of time, this is obviously an important viewpoint over the area, did you spend a bit of time with your street eyes on seeking out little moments like this?
I can't help it. Yeah, this is Mirador San Nicolas, which is a famous sunset viewpoint. And it's one of those places that everybody congregates there, waiting for the sunset. And some people get there really early so that they get the best position. And of course, it depends on what you think the best position is. If you want to sit on the wall and get the view uninterrupted of Alhambra and the sun setting behind the mountains, then of course you need to be where those guys are. But if you want to photograph what's going on, what happens in Mirador San Nicolas at sunset, people have seen pictures, the sunset pictures of Alhambra before. And, it's nice to do it again, obviously, and do it your own way. But once you've done that, sometimes it's interesting to sort of step back and go, what happens? And here we've got three lads being laddish, chatting to each other, and then the three girls. They've taken a picture of one of the girls and they've made it into a cartoon thing. I don't know what they've done. Some app that she's got on her phone. So it's the life that goes on, the stuff that happens there, and it's a kind of a buzzing place. I think every picturesque city has one of these famous sunset viewpoints. We were in Porto in the summer, and there's a couple of places that people gather to watch the sunset over the river. And it was as fascinating watching the people there as it was watching the sunset, because people gather there for the social thing and they chat and they bring drinks and they laugh and mess around. And then when the sun sets, they all clap.
They'll clap.
It's some amazing, like it's some amazing achievement. But I love it. I love it because you can do both things. You can do the landscapey kind of a picture, and then you can do the social kind of picture. You can do this kind of shot here where you've got the people and the subject matter, but you can also turn around and photograph the people photographing in that direction. And I love it. People are dressed up for dinner as well. So these people they're going out this evening. So people always look nice and they smell nice as well, which is also important. And they're ready to go out and everyone's in a good mood. So yeah, I love this kind of a thing. And this is a great place to shoot as well. When I was there, we went here, I think we went a couple of times to this piazza. We would call it a piazza, or it was a great viewpoint. Because actually it's beautiful in its own right. But the stuff that goes on there as well is fascinating. It's human life. And there's dogs up there and there's the guitarists and all kinds of things going on. It's great.
You see, here speaketh the eternal photographer, because the point is always about being visually aware, isn't it? You're always sort of scanning, and even just you explaining the types of people that are there, how they're dressed, how they're acting, that is someone who's alive and awake to these things, because that's how their brain works and how you're trained to work. But I think photographically, in terms of the tour, what will be interesting is, as we've alluded to at the very beginning, there's this breadth and of subject matter from architectural things, historic things, graphical things, light, landscape, people, dogs from the sounds of it, guitarists. No, you know what I mean. And I think the fun thing about being with Damien, and maybe I will get to Spain, Damien, is if you're maybe not as attuned, or not someone who's automatically would be thinking about, oh, maybe there's some cool shots to do of the crowd here, or of actually looking at the people who are looking, then he will kind of tune you into that. And I think that's really a great way to open up more avenues of photography, so that wherever you go, whenever you're there, for whatever part of the day, there's always stuff that's interesting that you can shoot, right? And that's a really cool kind of thing to have. Now, we talked about the view though as well, and that's the view. We should put it in there just in case.
There's a restaurant just below, to the right of this place that you can see here, and I hope we'll go there as well, because that's a great place. You can sit and stuff your face and drink yourself silly while enjoying the sun setting.
Beautiful.
Of course, as photographers, we won't be able to enjoy anything until we've got the picture.
Yeah.
But it's a really atmospheric place, and it's remarkably peaceful as well, because you're looking out over the valley and there's no sound in front of you. All the row is going on behind. But as you said, Sam, you know, like all light and land tours, you're not left to wander around by yourself and wonder what to do. And it doesn't, in some way, a lot of ways, your photographic experience doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a complete beginner or someone who's been taking pictures for 50 years. You will learn something new because I see differently to you. And other people on the trip will also see differently, and we'll all learn from each other. And there's always someone who turns around and gets a picture, and everyone looks at, how did you get that? And it opens your eyes to new ways of seeing stuff. But like you said, you know, if you're an architectural photographer, and I only ever do architecture, I will show you how to do other kinds of things. And it's my priority, obviously, is to make sure everybody else gets really good pictures. And I'll explain, you know, turn around. Everybody's looking that way. You turn around and look that way, because you're going to get a picture that's completely different. And I set little missions for people, you know, go and find people doing this, and you know, open your eyes and spend some time just looking at what's going on, see what's interesting, and then photograph that. So it doesn't matter what your general interest is in photography or how specific it is. It's going to be a travel photography kind of trip, which encompasses everything, doesn't it? That street, it's portraiture, it's landscape, and it's architecture. So everything will be going on.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about that is when you come back, you have there you go. Sounds great, indeed. Well, it does sound great.
That's because it is.
Get on the website, get yourself a space while there's one available. But the great thing about that is you come back from somewhere and you have a kind of story. You have a kind of narrative about the place, and that's photographically such an interesting thing to have, right? And I suppose then finding the thread of your aesthetic throughout that is a challenge as well. So this image I did obviously want to just pick you up on, because again, it's another one of those people watching. I mean, they don't seem to be bothered about the view though here, Damien.
No, I think one of them's reading the guidebook and explaining to the other one what it is that they're looking at.
Okay, but that's a good example of keeping your eye on what people are doing rather than necessarily.
It's hanging around. We don't rush through things. We will stop and think, what's going on here? What do we see? And then you see stuff like this, and then it's, well, you know, how do we frame that out? Where do their faces need to go in the frame? What kind of a background do we need to make this work? I should point out at the moment, every picture that we've shown has got Alhambra in the background. That's not all we're going to do.
No, well, no, I know. I'm going to drag us into the second half. Sorry, I've laboured over a few because I've been enjoying myself.
Well, I put the pictures together, so it's my fault. There we go. There's Alhambra again.
Yeah.
This is a different view. I found. I remember going to Paris a long time ago and photographing the Eiffel Tower. And you think, well, you know, I've got a picture of the Eiffel Tower. I could have just Googled that. And trying to do something different. And I discovered that we were walking along a different part of Paris. And I walked across the street, across a junction, and looked to my left. And oh my God, there's the Eiffel Tower way off in the distance. And it looks so much better from a long way away. And that stuck with me. And since then, I will go up and photograph things close up and all that sort of thing. But then think, right, where's the view going to be? Where's the long view? And this was, I used a map to work out where we should go to get a long view. And I had no idea really what it was going to be what it would look like. But Google Street View was very, very useful for finding this location. And there's stuff to see on the way as well. This is in a sort of a gypsy quarter of the city, which is outside of the city really, but walking distance. And there's caves there as well that you can go in and visit, and authentic cave dwellers live there. They're not what
still
we
living
think
there.
of as, yes, not like cavemen, but people who live in these caves carved into the rock. And it's a fascinating area. It's very interesting, but the thing that drew me to it was the long view, and I love it. It could be Tuscany, couldn't it, with all the pointy trees and things, and the beautiful skies. Yeah, so this is somewhere that we'll go during the day to admire the view from the city from a distance. Yeah,
get a different viewpoint of it. I mean, we mentioned about the chaps and the background, and that could only have been Spain. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but this, looks like some sort of Southern European dancing sensation. I presume you were just off camera, and this is someone else shooting for you. But there's so much to take in here. I mean, maybe you could explain about whether are we in that area with the caves again? Is this where we are?
We are. Yeah. This is a flamenco club that we booked to go and see, and you can have dinner there and things like that. And I just thought it was going to be the worst kind of touristy trap thing going.
Yeah.
But we should go and see it because we're going there, and it's one of the things. But actually, it was fantastic. It really was fantastic. It's quite a small club with little cavey passageways, and you sit and eat tapas and drink whatever you fancy to drink. And there's a flamenco show, and the musicians were brilliant, and the dancers were brilliant as well. And it was really, really lively. It felt authentic and cultural, even though there weren't many Spanish people in the audience. But it's great photographically. The colours in there were beautiful. The music was great, and the drama of the dancers was incredible. So this is somewhere we're going to go here too, and we'll have dinner there and photograph the dancers and the musicians too. It is quite small, but you can find a spot to stand in. When I was there were quite a few people taking pictures with their phones. Can you imagine what they came out like? Fortunately, I had a real camera with me. And actually, I shot some video clips of this as well. I took a mic and stuck it in the hot shoe, and that actually came out quite well, considering it was just a quick setup. But it was great, and experiments with shutter speeds here as well, to get some of the movement in. It was great.
Yeah, I did want to say, I mean, it's easy for me just to say, oh, that looks atmospheric, but we're just glossing over the fact that you've caught a really beautiful arc of the dancer, and that's shutter speed, that's recognizing the right moments and maybe taking a few images, a burst, and capturing, but selecting the most compelling one to show us. So I suppose it's a case of trying to, because what I'm trying to say, and I'm sort of fumbling my way around it, is there could be 10 or 20 of these sorts of shots, but that aren't quite the right one because the shape isn't there, or the separation isn't there, or the curve isn't there. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's choosing that at the time and looking at shutter speed, isn't it? And just thinking, if I just move an inch to the right, an inch to the left, or I just make it a bit slower, a bit faster, I'm just going to get that curve. And you start to see something in a movement that you see it before it's there, or you start to see in, what I'm saying, a bit like a long exposure. You can kind of understand what it's going to be like before you shoot it, because you're starting to envisage it, and then you can predict it, and then you get the shot that you kind of envisage in your head.
Yes. I'm not going to tell you this was the only picture I took, and then I got it there. I took a lot of shots. Before I started, I kind of knew the shutter speed I was looking for. And I had been up to the front as well, and I just got pictures of a person against a stone wall background. And I thought, hold on a minute, I'm not whatever it is I'm photographing here isn't what I saw. And so I went back, and then it got members of the audience and things in the foreground. So, so now we can see that it's a bar, a restaurant kind of a thing, and there's people watching. But yeah, playing with different shutter speeds stuff was allowed me to get different effects. And then, like you say, you start seeing it working. You think, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to concentrate on, this kind of a thing. And then you just need the dancer to do the right stuff to make the shapes.
Is that why you were shouting at her? No. Actually, sorry, just before we move on, because I'm going to move on to a couple of really beautiful interior shots in just a second. But actually, you made the most pertinent point. Now, I rambled a lot, but you made your pertinent point in about 10 seconds, which was showing that wider view, that the shadow of the person in the bottom left is what makes us understand we're in the hustle, the bustle of a club, rather than a setup thing or a photo shoot or whatever it is. And that's so what we can't see, other than the back of that person's head in total shadow, is actually what makes the rest of it so understandable to us. A bit like what we were saying before about the anchors and
yes,
so
it creates depth, or it creates a sense of depth, like Joe Cornish's rocks that he has in the foreground in his seascapes. I use people's heads. But it's doing the same thing. It gives us a beginning, a middle, and an end. Foreground, middle ground, and well, there's not much distance. Well, there's the lady at the back, isn't there? See, I'm pointing, but obviously you can't see what I'm pointing. The lady at the back. And so, it gives us a sense of depth. And I think the depth always helps us to feel like we're there. We're experiencing it, rather than looking at a picture of a flamenco dancer in a club. It makes us feel like we're in the club with the flamenco dancer. And there's a big difference. It's a slight change of words, but the effect is very different. And it changes the way viewers interact with your images.
Absolutely. Spot on. We've got a couple of beautiful portrait architectural images here. And I did what you've pointed out, and I know you've worked professionally doing lots of different architectural things internally and interiors for people and all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, it's a really simple thing to ask, and it may sound like a stupid question, but that's what I'm here for. How do you make a successful image in these sorts of situations? What are the sorts of things that are going through your mind in terms of building the image up? A bit like we've talked about the depth, okay, but what are things people need to be mindful of and maybe careful of when they're inside shooting such big architectural spaces?
It's the same as anything else, actually. It's slowly is the key thing. It's easy when we walk into a place like this, we're wowed. Oh my God, that's incredible. And then we snap away and then look at our pictures and think, oh, hold on, that looks nothing like the thing that made me go wow in the first place. So we need to take our time, analyze the scene. Analyze sounds a bit technical, but we know, what is it that's appealing to me? What is it that I like here? And that can be very difficult to work out. What is it that's attracting me? And in a place like this, it was the color of the stone and the repeating patterns going off into the distance. And you can see there the floor is another set of repeating patterns. They're all disappearing off into the confession box at the end there. So once you've identified that, how can I then show that to someone else in a photograph so that they understand what it is that drew my attention? So the obvious thing then is to, I shoot a lot of upright stuff anyway. I think I see the world upright. I don't know if my eyes are wrong. But in a place like this, everything's up and down. The pillars are up and down. So you turn the camera to shoot up and down. And then, I worked out what it was I wanted to do, but we need depth. We need something in the foreground. What forgot? Oh, these benches. So I moved back and included the benches in there to give us a nice little diagonal thing going across in the foreground. Had I had my tilt and shift lens, of course, with me, we could have got all those uprights. And I thought about fixing it more in Photoshop, but then you start losing the top of the arch and things. So Going back here again, I would probably shoot this a little bit wider to give myself a bit more space for correcting afterwards. But there's lots of places like this that are, you walk in and it's massive and it's stunning. And it can be completely overwhelming. It can be really hard. Like this. This is a monastery just slightly out of town. It's Our Lady of the Assumption. And it's just incredible. The amount of decoration in there is just mind-blowing. And again, it's actually quite difficult to photograph because you walk in and it's all in your face. And I have to spend a few minutes just trying to make sense of it. What is it that I want to show? What are the things that draw my attention? Where's the subject? And then what am I going to surround the subject with? And this is one I shot wide and corrected it. I haven't corrected it perfectly because it looked a bit too technical and tedious. So I've left some of the convergence in there because when you're there, that's what it looks like. You see those pillars converging, but it was shot with quite a wide lens. So I didn't want it to look like it was falling over. So I fixed it a bit. But yeah, this is somewhere else that we're going to go. From the outside, it's just the plainest building. And you walk inside and it's incredible. It's like Christmas.
all the budget went on the interior. Let's say that.
yeah. But they didn't like to show off on the outside, did they?
Yes, I suppose that would attract the people trying to take stuff out of it, probably. Yeah,
possibly.
With slight change in gear, and I'm going to keep us rolling because we've got maybe we've got about 5 more images to get to, including 2 or 3 really cool shots of yours, Damien, of your street eyes. But the light here is just so absolutely stunning, and again, it kind of screams locale, doesn't it? But maybe just explain what it is we're looking at and the point of it in the trip.
Yeah, this is the bull ring near Piazza del Toro. It's not Piazza, is it? It's something else, Del Toro. But yeah, the bull ring there is pretty amazing. We didn't see a bullfight, which is cool by me because I'm not necessarily into that. But it was really interesting to see around the place. You get to see the hospital in there where the bulls had its revenge.
Good.
Yeah, it was actually quite satisfying. And the guy was telling us how dangerous it is. I was thinking, yeah, it really is dangerous. That's great. But it's an ancient, it's a very old and historic bull ring. And the bull ring itself is, bull ring. But behind the scenes in the stables, it is really fascinating. And there's lots of passageways and like this. And the light was beautiful the day we went. It was a nice clear day. In the last one, I pumped up the contrast to try and make the most of it. And here as well, the contrast is slightly enhanced. But yeah, to make the most of it and to see the reflections and to bring out all the colours. It's a great place, actually. It really is. And it's about 15 minutes on the bus from where we'll be staying. So everywhere we can go on the bus in about 15 minutes or walk for about half an hour. So it's a surprisingly compact place. It's not like when you go to LA, everything's a mile away and you've got to get a cab. Yeah. Everything here is walkable, but we won't be walking everything. So it's pretty close to where we'll be staying. We'll be staying right in the centre of the city as well, in a sort of modern shopping, or not modern shopping, relatively modern shopping area. When I say modern, I mean 18 or 1700s rather than 1400s.
Fair enough.
But in a very flash hotel there.
Nice. What this reminds me of, just briefly before I move you on, is your gold pralines.
Yeah.
It screams Dim Older. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, when we did the Light and Land mall exhibition, wasn't it? I think, Damien, that. Or Oxford. No, it was the mall, wasn't it?
The Oxford.
No, it was the Oxford. That's right. It was the Oxford. Sorry,
yeah.
And we all had a few images in there, and one of Damien's was of a gold praline shop, I believe, in Brussels, Belgium, somewhere like that.
Prague.
Prague, sorry, and
Yeah.
and they had that project onto a very large advertisement screen near the South Bank. And actually, if anyone knows the image I'm talking about, you'll know perhaps why I felt a bit of a reference with that. Sorry, just a little bit of a geeky.
I hadn't noticed that.
You like you I'll tell you why. Sorry, and you're a man who loves gold. Great, we all do. But you're a man who loves a shadow, and I like that about you, Damien.
Yeah,
such as this.
Shadows. Yeah, this is down in the older part of the city. An old part of the city. There's a little river that runs through, and it takes you around some walled areas, and there's little archy bridges going over into the area where all the baths are, so you can go and get beaten up by a massive bloke who's going to cover you in bubbles, which actually highly recommended. We had a great time in there. But around there, when we came out, it was late afternoon, and the long shadows were making an appearance. And the lamp on the wall was beautiful, but maybe you wouldn't notice it during the day, in the middle of the day. But the shadows created by the bracket holding it onto the wall were just amazing. And I thought, yeah, there's a frame. I just need someone to walk into it. And various people had walked in, and I got some quite nice pictures. But of course, they're quite two-dimensional, aren't they? Where you've got a wall with someone that's standing in front of it, so it needs a Joe Cornish rock. And there is the Joe Cornish rock with his Adidas t-shirt on, walking into the foreground to create a little bit of depth for us. But it's also, I like this kind of a thing because it creates a sense of motion and action. This isn't a static scene, it's a scene that's developing. And that lad was in that part of the frame for about 1,000th of a second. And then he was gone. So I love that, the chance, the risk. You may not get it kind of action sort of shot. And of course, in this sort of situation, he's walked into my picture. So even though he's very close, he can't complain that I photographed him. Because I was there before him.
Yeah, that's right. But the fleeting nature of it, you're right. And also, but again, just even tiniest bits of perfection about positioning of his nose, not quite breaking that longer shadow, her knee, the angle of her leg, mirroring the diagonals on the wall. There's all kinds of cool things going on photographically. And in that all happen in a fleeting moment is the joy, isn't it? When you look at it on the back of the camera and you're like,
yeah.
That's
all luck. All luck.
No, it's not. It's experience.
Well, it is. It's
luck.
Yeah, well, luck is a massive part of everything I do. But obviously, you know that if you stand there long enough, your luck will come true. Yeah. Well, actually, sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes, you get stuff that you hadn't imagined. And how the girl with the stripy dress on and the guy's stripy...
Yeah, exactly.
Pointing again. The guy's stripy epaulets on his shoulder just kind of work. Then no way I could predict that.
No. Well, what was it? The thing, the more you practice, the luckier you get, right? So it's the same.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
The same.
This is on the bus. It's a reflection of people on my bus in the back of the bus in front of us.
A lot of buses there, Damien.
It's just one of those moments. And I love that kind of thing. So this isn't, we're not going to go to this location and try and photograph this exact kind of picture. But it's the idea really is that your camera's in your hand the whole time. It's on, the lens cap is off. You have a spare battery so that you're not going to worry about your camera being on all day. So that when you see crazy things like this, you're ready, you can get up and shoot it. I suppose it's a reflection of the way I see and the kind of things I look for. We all see reflections. Everybody sees reflections in glass and stuff. But not everybody would think to take a photograph of them or consider it to be a visual experience that was worth recording. But hopefully people that come on the tour with us will start to see that way as well. And it's the idea of this kind of thing is to open your eyes to opportunities that you'll see in everyday life. And you'll see this sort of thing in Walthamstow, or you'll see it anywhere you go, even in Sheppey, you'll see this kind of a thing where you've got reflections in windows, and you see partly through the window, and then you see what's across the road in the reflection of the window, and it can be really, really exciting. And it's to help people not just walk down the street and think, oh, there's nothing to photograph, there's nothing going on there. It's to really help us search for exciting photographic opportunities.
Yeah. So is it Hans Gruyart? Is that the chap that does a lot of the reflective stuff? Anyone out there maybe can correct me on that. But Davina has asked very briefly, never seen you with one, but you must have used a tripod for the interiors, question mark.
Davina, you know me better than that.
No.
I have a tripod. My camera here is on a tripod. No, I didn't take a tripod for these at all. I spend a lot. I have the levels on the whole time on the back of the camera, trying to get everything as straight as possible, and then I just crank up the ISO to get the depth of field that I want and the shutter speed that I want. So no, on these kinds of trips, you can bring a tripod, of course, and it's great for some of the night stuff. But carrying a tripod around all day could be a bit of a drag. In the city, and they can get in the way as well, and you become less fleet of foot, I think, even because you've got 3 extra feet. And so no, none of these were shot with a tripod at all.
No. Okay, I'm just gonna bring us to a close in the next 2 or 3 minutes. This is the last image,
Okay.
and I've got one other thing I want to mention to everyone. So do just hang on the live stream about what's coming next. So just bear with me. But this is an excellent, suitable one to go out on. It's kind of a good night from Granada and the area. So I think just to kind of recap, we've mentioned this is happening in May. So the 12th to the 17th of May, Damien will be over there, 5-night tour, staying in a very, very nice hotel. He will even take you to the flamenco dancing, and if all of you persuade him strongly enough, he will attempt to recreate, dress included.
So I knew that was coming.
So he told me anyway. He didn't need much persuading either, I've heard. But yes, it would be a photographic feast for the eyes and for your development and for ways of looking. And like Damien said, we all learn from each other, and the more stimulating a place is, the more kind of really cool angles and different ways of seeing that can come up out of that. And I think this evening, hopefully we've proved that there's a great deal to see there. Damien, any final thoughts just before I bring us to a close tonight, Damien, that you want to just touch on?
It will be a learning experience, and there'll be lots of things to see and photograph, but it's going to be good fun as well. And hopefully it will change your photography and the way you see. That's the key thing for me, is opening eyes and minds to different ways of seeing and shooting, which will help you whatever kind of photography you're in, whether you're a portrait photographer or a still life photographer or a landscaper. It will change the way you see and open you to new opportunities. And the food is really nice. Didn't mention that, but food there is fantastic.
Yeah, food and I'm sure the wine's pretty decent as well.
I wouldn't know about that.
No, okay, fair. Obviously not. You're too busy dancing. Well, Damien, thank you very, very much indeed for your time.
Thanks,
I really love always talking about your images because there's so much cool stuff to discuss. And thank you everyone who's been with us throughout the evening. If you've got any final thoughts, comments, soft abuse for Damien, feel free to hit it here. I will just finish by saying what is coming next, because obviously I do always, it's never ending.
Look at him.
It's like the news cycle. There he is, Charlie. He'll hate me for using that one. Sorry.
Look at that picture.
I mean, you know, what that just screams authority. Charlie will be back with me. And for logistical reasons, this is an interview that we will pre-record, but it will be released on Monday, the 30th of December. It's a bit like the King's Speech, but more enthralling, I hope. Monday, the 30th of December, 8 p.m. on the usual places you will have watched tonight. That will be myself and Charlie. We have about a 20-minute chat talking about this year and celebrating 30 years of Light and Land. There's a good couple of funny stories about how Light and Land started and some of the early tours. Phil and Clive, we talk about a little bit on there, and some other good bits and bobs. So if you would like to join us for the final stream or video of the year, like I say, that's Monday 30th of December, and do join us for that. And we'll be carrying on next year into the spring with some more live streams. Tom and Ed are going to be talking about the Dolomites with me. I'm going to be talking about Yorkshire, which is a tour I'm going to be doing with Ben next year. There he is himself. Thank you very much, Charlie, for being with us. And I'll just do the final bits of comments here, Damien, and then I'll let you go. Thank you for your time. Damien, thank you, Damien and Sam. A wonderful place to visit with the camera. Absolutely. Thank you, Sam and Damien, as well from Sunnabird there, up in Carnoustie, I think you were, if I remember rightly. Yeah. But yes, let's get rid of Charlie there. Charlie, we've talked about you too much tonight, haven't we? Damien, thanks a lot, mate. Really good to chat.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, and all your viewing of the live streams this year. Join Damien in Granada in May. Jump on lightandland.co.uk to find out about more. But otherwise, have a fantastic Christmas, and don't eat too much. That includes you, Damien. And don't dance too much. And we'll see you all again very soon on the live stream. Good night.
I hope Santa's kind to you all.
Yes. Brings you a camera or a Light and Land trip. Good night, everyone.